Welcome to Physicians Keepers. Each episode features honest conversations with physicians, sharing moments that shaped them, challenged them, or taught them something worth passing on. These stories come from every corner of a physician's life: the clinic, OR, family, finances, mental health, leadership, and personal growth. If a story can help another doctor feel seen or strengthened, it belongs here. It's about honesty, courage, and community true storytelling. If you are looking for connection or a reminder that you are not alone in navigating this profession, you are in the right place. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Physicians Keepers. If you are watching on YouTube, you're listening on Spotify, I am your host, Dr. Ali, and I'm so excited to have you here today. And today's going to be an amazing day. I have Dr. Alexandra Stockwell, and I am truly honored to have her here. I have known about her work for almost 5 years, and so when I got the opportunity to have her as a guest, I was like, "Oh, you all are so in for a treat." She's amazing at what she does, and she's been doing this for a while. So if you're looking for anyone seasoned in what we're going to talk about, Dr. Stockwell is the one that you need to listen to. So I'm just going to quickly give her bio, and then we're just going to delve into her story today. So Dr. Alexandra, aka the Intimacy Doctor, is a physician coach and an intimate marriage expert, widely known for her ability to catalyze immediate and meaningful shifts in high achieving couples who want genuine emotional connection, sensual passion, and a relationship that feels as alive and successful as the rest of their lives. For over 20 years, she has worked with men and women to bring real connection back to all aspects of their relationship, from the ordinary texture of daily life to the quality of intimacy in the bedroom. Her clients are growth oriented, accomplished, and quite competent in most areas of life. They are confronted with the reality that those qualities haven't translated to their intimate relationship. Something is missing, and they want to uplevel. She is also the best-selling author of Uncompromising Intimacy, creator of the Aligned and Hot Marriage Program and the Intimate Connection app, and the host of the Intimate Marriage Podcast, which is ranked top 1% of podcasts globally. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Huffington Post, Rolling Stone, Cosmopolitan, USA Today, Business Insider, Mind Body Green, and Fox News NYC. LA Weekly named her one of the top 10 relationship experts to watch in 2023. So, quite a list of accomplishments, Dr. Alexandra. It's an absolute honor, like I said, to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to dive in.
Yes, yes. So, um, take us back. So, before the coaching, before the best-selling book, um, what first drew you to medicine? Why did you pursue medicine as a choice of career?
You know, there are a few different answers to that question. One thing is that I really was interested in so many different things. And in
Yeah.
college, I majored in philosophy. And
Oh,
it was kind of challenging for me to figure out, was I really going to pick one thing going forward? Because I just was so interested in
yeah.
many different things. And I really love that about medicine, that even though when picking the career, it seems restrictive, at least it did to me, it really is a doorway to so many different kinds of experiences. So that was really meaningful to me. And also, when I was in ninth grade, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday became a national holiday. And my
Yeah.
mother, who attended Brown, it was called Pembroke when she was there, she had met Martin Luther King Jr. before he
Oh,
was so
wow.
famous in the early 60s. And she was just very clear that we were not going to honor this great man by just lying around on the couch and reading books. We were going to do something.
Yeah.
So she arranged for us to volunteer at what was basically a holistic nursing home. It really
Oh,
calling it a nursing home isn't it was more like an intergenerational community
Yeah.
where the elderly and sick resided as well. And it was an extraordinary experience for me because even like there was one woman in a wheelchair, but her hands were healthy. She didn't have arthritis. And so when younger people would bring in the harvest from the garden, she would shuck the peas because that was something that she could contribute. So I guess what I'm saying is that I went into medicine really hopeful that it was a way that I could contribute meaningfully to people's lives. In fact, it's been a long time since I thought about this, but I had three criteria. I wanted to do something that would be a meaningful contribution to others, that I would be good at, and would be something that would provide stimulation and growth and really expand not just my skills, but who I am as a human being. So that is what landed me in medicine. Although I thought, is this too idealistic? Because I myself had never really been sick
Yeah.
and I had known people who had died, but I wasn't close to medical experiences. And
Yeah.
so when I finished college, I became a phlebotomist because that was the best easy route for me to, with a needle,
Yeah.
patients take you seriously. And so it gave me an opportunity to, without being sick, be
Yeah.
in the doctor world. And then I applied.
Oh wow. Now you practiced family medicine back then. Why family medicine? Why was that the path that you chose of all the branches in medicine? Why family medicine?
Okay, well, since this is detail that I do not usually include, but for an audience of physicians on Physician Keepers, let me
Yeah.
say that I met my husband in medical school. We were married during third year,
Oh wow.
and soon after I was pregnant. And so I was a third year medical student. I was pregnant, and I went into the dean's office.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone else who was pregnant during medical school. There was one very traditional man whose wife
Yeah.
had had a baby and he didn't take any time off, and that was during first or second year anyway. So I went into the dean's office not knowing if I would be kicked out of medical school because
Oh.
this is, I think, so relevant for your your whole show that
Yeah.
if we don't know stories of other people, we just don't know. And I'd never seen
Yeah.
a pregnant medical student, so I didn't know if I could still be a medical
Yeah.
student, but I could. And I took a year off
Oh.
because my daughter was born at the end of September. And so I was off from July until July. And um, because my husband had taken a year off to do some research, we graduated together and he matched in family medicine. And I decided not to enter the match because I was pregnant with our second child. And it was just too much for us both to be interns with two little babies. So, what this meant is that my husband matched, and I made a point as an intern spouse to
Yeah.
introduce myself to the program director so he knew that I wanted to become an intern down the road. And actually, what ended up happening is that 6 months into my husband's internship year, and 3 months after our second child was born, I got a phone call from him saying, I have someone. Anyway, the particulars don't matter, but I was able to enter residency outside the July schedule. And so my path was not the typical one early on, although I was just doing what made sense to me in the moment.
Good
And
job.
I really didn't appreciate how radical it was. In fact, I was interviewed about a year ago on stethoscopes and strollers, another physician podcast. And she was like, did you know you could take time off? And it just didn't occur to me. I just was kind of doing what made sense to me without knowing all the rules, knowing that there wasn't anybody that I could ask the rules to. So I wanted to say all of that because it wasn't just that I went into family medicine. But why did I go into family medicine? Mostly because I love the whole life cycle. And
Yeah.
my favorite rotations during medical school were surgery and psychiatry, but I didn't want to become a psychiatrist or a surgeon. I wanted to do family medicine.
Oh wow, that is amazing. Yeah, I mean, that must have been rough though. We're looking at two physicians and then two little ones in training. Did you have any help? Like, was there any outside family help? How did you both navigate this? Because that's sometimes in dual physician households, that's always a big challenge, especially when it comes to your marriage, right? Because there's a lot of stress. And how did you navigate that?
We did not have family help. We did have a nanny who had worked for, it was not a dual physician home, but a single physician home before. And I was really grateful for that because it meant she understood how the schedules worked. And she really, she was younger than we were, but she provided a steadiness for our family and household. And there were other married couples in residency, but they would always request to be on call at the same time so that they could be off together. My husband and I, through all of the different rotations, always had to work hard so that we weren't on call at the same time, so that one of us ideally was home and not post call. This was the days when we could easily work 36 or
Yeah.
40 hours. So I know my internship year, we had one weekend off together. But look, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And happily, our kids were never sick. So we didn't
Yeah.
need to call in for that. And I don't really ever think about it. Like that time has passed. And um, I, I mean, the main thing was finding someone that I felt really good about my children being with. And the other thing is that whereas I heard various residents, like when they were going to be heading home, to say, like, keep the kids up until I get there. I never did that. I wanted my children to have as much routine and stability as they could. So if their bedtime was 7 p.m., if I was going to get home at 7:45, I still wanted them to go to bed at 7 p.m. so that I knew it was temporary and that
Yeah.
what was going to be best for my children was the kind of stability and secure attachment that comes from rhythms and routines and a loving caregiver. And would I have
Yeah.
liked that to be me? Sure, but it wasn't. That was necessary, and you know, it was a voluntary choice.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm so glad everything worked out the way it did for you. Like I said, you're pretty fortunate to have, to have found someone that you trusted because that's another issue. Now, how long did you, I mean, because we did talk about that you're no longer practicing clinically. How long did you practice clinically before you decided to kind of step into this world that you are right now?
Okay, I'm trying to think. It was maybe 8 years.
Oh,
Well, it was 8 years from when I graduated
oh
from medical
wow.
school.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that long. And when I transitioned, I did some insurance physicals for a little while. Like
Mm,
I made a little bit of money, but basically there were a lot of different things that happened. In 2005, I had my third child because we had two and then we had a big gap
yeah.
with training and everything. And also, each of my parents had died, one in
Mm.
2000 and one in 2002. And
I'm so
so
sorry
I
to hear
don't
about that.
know. What did you say?
I said I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I don't know how much that influenced me or not, but the result is that I was definitely not burned out. I mean, burnout wasn't even really a phenomenon. I mean, I'm not saying people weren't burnt out, but it wasn't
Yeah.
a well-known term
Yeah.
at that time. But I was in my mid 30s. I was the oldest person in my family, very unexpectedly, because I had had
Mm.
long lived grandparents and great grandparents. And I just, I felt like at the volume of a whisper, I knew that this was not going to be satisfying. It's like there was no big
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
couldn't see continuing as I was for another 3 or 4 decades. So
Oh
there
wow.
was no crisis, there was no burnout. I did, however, know that I couldn't help myself. I prioritized my patients over my family and my family over myself. And it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't like a time management issue. I tried so many different things and I thought, this is not healthy. It's not healthy for my children. It's not healthy for me. I need to like reorganize my priorities, but it wasn't just intellectual. It was like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
within my identity. And so I arranged to take a sabbatical for a year, thinking I had tried so many different things. I needed to just like have a clean slate. So I took a sabbatical and ended up never going back. But the thing is that I took the sabbatical, and within a few months, I was volunteering at my children's school to oversee this big project in the music department and writing a 40-page document and coordinating a team of 10 people. And anyway, the long and the short of it is that I was prioritizing this project and having meetings because the time that was inconvenient for me was convenient for everybody else. And I realized I recreated the exact same scenario of prioritizing something else over my family, over myself. And this time it was volunteer. It was kind of just devastating to
Yeah.
realize what I had done, but it also was very affirming that I really needed to work on myself in order to align my identity, my
Yeah.
values, my priorities with how I was present in my life.
Oh wow. Now, was that when you got into the world of coaching? Like, was that the window into that?
No, I've been interviewed, I haven't kept counting, but probably around 500 times. And people used to always ask me, "Oh, how did you go from practicing medicine to coaching?" Well, there was a long gap in between. And I usually don't mention it because it's irrelevant. But in this context, when I took that sabbatical, I became aware that I don't know exactly how connected I was with myself before I went into
Yeah.
medical school. I don't presume I was massively connected with myself, but on the other end of medical training, I was not really grounded and connected with myself. And so when I had this sabbatical, I still had young children, so I didn't like suddenly have all free time, but I had
Yeah.
a few hours each day and I had no idea what to do with them. And so I went and sat down by the river. I
Mhm.
took a painting class. I took a dance class. Like I just was trying to find parts of my soul that I had yet to meet or had been dormant. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing that wasn't sustainable for me if I just kept
Yeah.
going, is that I would be like a much narrower person than I actually am, than we
Yeah.
all are. So, with this, one thing led to another. I tried different things. I ended up at the School of Womanly Arts in Manhattan for a 6 month training program. I mean, going on weekends. I was living
Yeah.
north of Boston at the time. And there's a way in which I found joy again. Um, I found delight in being a
Yeah.
woman rather
Yeah.
than just a doctor or a mother or even a wife.
Yeah.
And so one thing led to another, and I felt like I was on track with who I want to be and how I am living my life. And I found that my marriage, particularly the quality of connection between my husband and I, hadn't developed at the same rate that I had developed in my
Yeah.
relationship with myself. So my husband and I have always gotten along well. We make financial decisions in a collaborative way. We parent together well, but there was a way in which things were still kind of narrow or
Yeah.
flat. And so now this is many years and a move or two later, and
Yeah.
we were living now in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I decided to enroll in a program. It was a year long program focused on sensuality and sexuality that was for lay people and also doubled as a coach training. And at the time, I had no idea what a coach was. I liked my MD and real, trainings and
Yeah.
certifications. I wasn't interested in doing something light,
Yeah.
LITE. Like I didn't know what a coach was, but I didn't really
Yeah.
care because I wasn't there to become a coach. I was there to heat up my own marriage.
Yeah.
But I had done a lot of consulting in private schools and was always interested in pedagogical methodologies and ways of teaching things. And I became fascinated. How do they actually teach people to work with couples? And so I went to the teaching lab almost like going to the museum. I went to the teaching lab just to see what was there. And when
Yeah.
I was there, I was like, oh, I have come home.
Oh,
That
wow.
so much of what I wanted to do in medicine, not all of it, obviously,
Yeah.
but so much of what drew my heart into medicine, I can do in coaching. And I really haven't looked back. I've been coaching since 2013.
That is amazing. Because I said coaching for a lot of physicians was new, right? I would say that for me because I didn't know much about coaching until during the pandemic, right? This is now where everyone's on the internet and there's trying to find those connections and it's like, oh, there are physicians doing this and oh, there are physicians doing that. It's like, oh, we have, and so it was awesome to see people like you who have opened that door and given us a peek into that. Now, being a physician and a coach, when you stepped into the world of coaching, was there some pushback? Because you, like I said, you're thriving in the world of, as an intimacy coach. Was there, did they welcome you with open arms, or was there some pushback to say, this is not your lane? Like stay in your lane and don't, pick one. Don't do
Okay,
both.
I love the question, and I have two different answers. One answer is that when I stepped away from medicine, starting with my year long sabbatical and then not returning, I didn't know a single doctor who had voluntarily left the practice of medicine, other than maybe to go into research
Yeah,
or pharmaceutical work or something. The only doctors that I knew of who were no longer practicing, it was due to addiction, accident, illness,
yeah,
injury. And I had a lot of shame about stepping away. I knew that, yes, I paid a lot of tuition to become a doctor, but I knew that it's also publicly funded, and a lot of people or institutionally had invested in me becoming a competent doctor. And
yeah,
I really just felt a lot of shame. I don't, with the statistics on leaving medicine now, it's hard to relate to what that was like. But what I'm really setting up the context to say in order to answer your question is that my identity as a physician really just began to hibernate. Like,
yeah,
I didn't tell people I was a doctor. So when I went to this coach training, actually, the coach training itself was really comprehensive and also very bohemian and far out. And I don't think that anyone else in my program with 150 students was married and a parent and married to the other parent of
yeah.
their children. Like, there's a lot of
Mm,
single people, polyamorous, divorced, and so, like, people who were really not in any particular lane. And
Yeah.
so I really didn't tell anyone that I was married. I mean, it wasn't that I kept it hidden, it just
Yeah.
didn't come up because that wasn't true for most people there. And I also didn't tell anyone that I was a doctor. So that wasn't really a thing. And one of the delights for me was being in this very raw environment and then taking what I learned and going back to the suburbs and translating it into something that actually serves people who live with a white picket fence or,
Yeah. Yeah.
metaphorically speaking. However, I will say that one of the um, practice coaching sessions I did in my first or second time in the coaching lab, teaching lab, I coached someone and I felt like I had done such a good job. I'm a physician. I'm used to, I've had my hand in all the body parts we've been
Mhm.
talking about. I've delivered babies. I've done pelvic exams. uh, I've done prostate exams. Like I just felt competent and I wasn't blushing about these
Yeah.
things the way some of my colleagues were at first. And I just thought, I know how to have these conversations. I know how to ask questions, listen. It's not really a diagnosis in
Yeah.
coaching. There's no coding or anything like
Yeah.
that, but it is listening to know what's going on. And so after asking really good questions and hearing what my client was saying, I then shared the plan. It's like I had an assessment
Yeah.
and I shared the plan.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got, because I was feeling very proud, like I'm more advanced as I should be after becoming a physician and practicing medicine. But
Yeah.
anyway, what she said to me is, your questions were really good, but I felt disconnected from you.
Mm.
And that was an extraordinary piece of feedback for me
Yeah.
because I realized, of course, I was disconnected. That is what being professional is.
Mhm.
In medicine, yes, we want a good bedside manner, but that includes having some appropriate professional barriers.
Yeah.
And we all, I think that this becomes a challenge in our intimate relationships, but anyone who's a good physician has learned to ignore their internal experience, whether it's, standing in the OR and not urinating or not having food or sleep. Like, and certainly if we're annoyed or sad, like, there just are so many ways in
Yeah.
which our training inherently includes disconnecting from ourselves.
It does.
And I
Yeah.
realized that I had put attention on this um, classmate who was being a
Career.
client for me. I
Yeah.
felt like I had given her great connecting attention, but she felt disconnected from me. And there are some kinds of coaching where that's fine. There's a certain amount of executive coaching, for example, or fitness coaching where you don't need to have, I mean, it's probably better with a really good relationship, but when it comes to relationship and intimacy coaching, not that I'm going to have the kind of relationship that
Yeah.
the couples I work with have with one another, but if it doesn't feel intimate, if I'm not open hearted,
Yeah.
then they're not going to receive what they come to me to receive. So, this was your question about, did people think, stay in the medicine lane? Nobody was thinking that. They didn't know I was a doctor, but I was thinking, oh, in order for me to become masterful in coaching, I need to heal and work through a lot of the internal rules and ways of hiding behind being professional that were completely appropriate in medicine that just are not appropriate as a relationship and intimacy coach. Now, I have excellent boundaries. I don't want to make it seem like I'm wishy-washy and like, no, I have excellent boundaries. But when someone says something that touches me, I will wipe away a tear. I, in fact, I have a client, I have a couple I'm coaching right now, two physicians, but I was doing a session just with him just a few days ago, and his wife wants more connection, and he is confused about that. And so we did role plays where he spoke with me, and I said, I don't feel a connection. Or, oh, yes, I feel connected. But this can't just be didactic and intellectual with the kind of coaching that I do.
Wow. I mean, what you're doing is so amazing. And I hear the story behind your experience. And one of the things you mentioned when how did this, because you went there with the mindset you just wanted to learn what could help your marriage. How did, how did it help yours? Because there are a lot of people who are really good at helping other people deal with their own stuff, but then when it comes to their selves, they lack that awareness. How did it help yours? Because you've been married for how long now?
Over 30 years.
That is amazing. How did I mean, so how did it help yours to the point where you feel like, oh my God, this is my marriage. It's beautiful. It's what I would want. We're so intimate that I want to be able to see other couples experience this because I believe that that's it with the heart that you have just from your childhood, just wanting to influence people in such a positive way. How did it help yours?
Okay, well, I have no idea exactly what I would have answered then, but it's not then. So I can tell you now because a lot of what I took from that training, but I applied it in the context of a long-standing monogamous responsible marriage. And so there were translations needed, and I've done a lot of other training since. But the answer that I would give now is the system I've developed, which I call choose intimacy. In fact, I was just preparing a talk about this, so I'll share three of the things that are part of choosing intimacy. One is using everyday interactions to build more connection. In fact, when I started thinking about it, this really originated when I went back to medical school for my fourth year and we had a baby, and my husband had his fourth year. And every Sunday night, we would have these long logistics conversations, and he and I each tended towards being people pleasers. And I think in other situations, we would have compromised a lot, but we couldn't compromise because we were both devoted to
Yeah.
our own and one another's success in medical school. And so I needed to be really clear on what I need and really open to what he needs so that we could coordinate everything with the nanny and our daughter's care and all of that. But anyway, that's an example of using logistics conversation to create more connection. Now, I don't mean that, you know, every time we have a logistics conversation, we get out a bottle of wine. That's possible. But I mean that even something as simple as slowing down, putting attention on your spouse, looking them in the eyes, and saying, good morning, that makes the day feel very different than just leaving without saying good morning or bye, honey. And I'm already like thinking about other
Yeah.
things. Like, so, one thing to answer your question is just bringing more presence and connection to everyday interactions. That's one thing. The second thing is learning how to be aware of what my internal experience is, my thoughts and feelings, frustrations, dreams, desires, learning to express those so that my husband could hear and eventually open up and share with me too. Because so often, if we don't feel really heard, seen, cherished, and respected, then we stop sharing if we ever started. And each time we don't share, it's not that I need to tell my husband everything, but if there's something I want him to know and I don't say it, that creates a block in our connection.
Yeah.
In fact, I really enjoy saying that in the context of a long-term marriage, everything which isn't sex functions as foreplay. Like either you lean in
Yeah.
and have a little or a lot of connection, or you are leaning out and creating disconnection.
Mm.
And then the third thing is really each of us, but I focused on me first for sure. Well, I always focus on me in this, that I take responsibility for how I am feeling. So, one of the things that made a really big difference was my stop hoping that my husband would change his behavior so that I would feel different.
Mm.
And these are all things that made our just it brought more aliveness and made
Yeah.
our marriage just more dynamic with more range and more depth. And it's really not very far to transition from that into feeling just more energy and chemistry in the bedroom. And I learned a lot of things in my program that I also teach couples that I assume you don't want me to get into right here. So that is how it helped my marriage.
That is awesome. Yes, I'm sure that your coaching clients will, it's one of those sessions when you being a physician is like, hey, I'm just telling you the science behind this.
Yes, although let me just say there are some great people out there who teach the science, and
Yeah,
I am more focused on the art.
on the art
Because you need both art and science for
and
so many
science.
things, including a hot, gratifying sex life.
That is awesome, Dr. Alexandra. Now, your book is titled Uncompromising Intimacy. And I'm kind of struck by that word uncompromising because, especially in the physician world, right? Because as physicians, we're trained to compromise ourselves constantly, right? We're trained our lack of sleep, our meals, our families. Now, for a doctor, what does that word mean for them when they've been taught that, self-sacrifice is a virtue? What does that word uncompromising when it comes to intimacy, just based on your coaching experience with physicians, how do you break that wall down for them?
That is a fantastic question. And I'm not talking about compromise or being uncompromising in all the other areas that you've mentioned, but specifically in the setting of marriage or long term partnership, I think of compromise as essentially withholding who you are so that your partner is more comfortable.
Mm,
So maybe you want to get Thai food, but you know your partner doesn't like it, so you don't bring it up. I mean, we have so many examples, whether it's in the bedroom, out of the bedroom. We are just so used to just withholding
yeah,
because that's simpler. When we love someone and we don't want to have a fight, it's just simpler to withhold it.
yeah,
I mean, simpler in the short term, it leads to disconnection and resentment, but it can feel like it's simpler in the moment.
yeah,
So when I talk about uncompromising intimacy, I am not using the word uncompromising in the sense that you always get your own way. Like,
yeah,
that's impossible with two people involved. You can't always get your own way, not both of you, one of you maybe. But when it comes to uncompromising intimacy, what I'm really pointing to is the learned skills to be able to share who you are, what you're experiencing in a way that your partner can receive it without becoming defensive or shut down. I was referring to that earlier. And so, my book, in addition to being various stories and the principles involved, it includes 6 pillars, which sound very simple, but each one has a lot of depth. The first one is cultivate curiosity. Like, this is one of the most underutilized ways of successfully interacting with someone. Not
Yeah.
interrogation, just to be
Yeah, yeah,
clear,
yeah.
but well, some people hear that and then they just ask a lot of questions. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuinely being interested, being curious, receiving the response, and asking another question. Anyway, I think that curiosity is something that's available to us that doesn't cost any money, and I guess it takes
Yeah.
some time, but it really is transformational for relationships when you want to have more energy in the interaction, you want to be able to share with more authenticity. That's just the first one, but Uncompromising Intimacy, my book, really is a roadmap really to be yourself, because this is something that physicians know well in the way that you described. But I used to say that, like, we don't want to have to amputate parts of ourselves in order to walk in the door and participate in our marriage. In
Yeah.
my opinion, the goal is to be whole, to include highs and lows and lightness and playfulness and depths and intensity. And I don't mean to become unduly emotional. I just mean to really feel alive. That when we work hard as physicians and there's so much thinking and high intensity experiences and things that we do the same over and over and over again, like, there's an opportunity in marriage to really feel alive, to feel nourished,
Yeah.
to be able to be silly and serious.
Yeah.
So, uncompromising intimacy really points to the fullness of being with your partner.
That is amazing, and I would definitely get a copy. So is this available on Amazon?
Amazon and Audible.
Audible. Awesome. So I'm definitely getting myself a copy, and I'm definitely gonna put the links in the show note for anyone who's listening that wants to dig deeper. Because like I said, relationships are the foundation for a lot of who we are. And, if your relationship at home, which is, where you come home, where you come to every day, with your spouse, is it's not solid, it does have a way of spilling out your into everything else, pretty much. And I'm sure you've had a lot of experience with couples in that.
Yeah, it spills out when it's not solid. And I definitely work with physician couples in those situations. And I also work with couples where everything looks good from the outside. And sometimes on the inside, we can think, well, I should be happy. Like, she's a good woman, he's a good man. Like, there's a way in which, um, yeah, we put up with it because it's pretty good and it
Yeah,
would be worse to separate. But there is so much more. You do not have to keep tolerating a kind of blandness in life
yeah,
when you yearn for more.
that is awesome. Now, when physician couples come to you, what pattern do you see more of? And what does it reveal about physicians? Is there something that strikes you when physician couples come to you for coaching, counseling?
Yes, I think that there are some unique challenges for physician couples that are actually the natural consequence of the different things that we've been talking about, because physicians are used to tolerating a lot when it comes to our bodies and when it comes to our souls. And we can like there's a sense of worthiness that needs to be developed in order to say what we want without being demanding
Yeah.
or nagging. Sometimes if we want something and we don't get it, then it comes out with like extra energy and force, which then makes the thing unappealing. So
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I probably teach often is how to ask for what you want so it feels good to give it to you. And the way that I'm talking about it now, that is very much kind of from a woman's perspective, from a man's and I have to say that I used to speak very inclusively, but it's heterosexual couples who work with me, so I tend to use that
Yeah.
terminology just to clarify. But I have a master class for men called How to Ask Your Woman for Sex So She's More Likely to Say Yes. And while that is for anyone,
Yeah.
I think that that's also very relevant in physician couples because anyone who's a successful physician knows about delegating
Yeah.
and asking the MA to do things. And when we have success with that, it's actually challenging unless it's been there from the beginning,
Yeah.
and often it hasn't, to find our way to connect with a spouse without treating our spouse like a coworker
Mm.
or an employee, or for
Mm.
that matter, a boss. And
Mm.
I think how that plays out depends on whether it's a dual physician couple or a physician with somebody else. And I guess the things that I've said are not unique to physicians, but there's an intensity to the challenge. We really are not used to paying attention to our experience,
Yeah.
which is something 100% essential to experience any flavor of intimacy.
Yeah. So much wisdom in what you said, Dr. Alexandra. It's just amazing. Now, when you started this journey into coaching, did you did you have any glimpse that it'd take you to where you are today, being an author, having the 1%, your podcast ranked top percent, the wife and mother bestseller? Like, did you have any idea, or you were just like, well, just see how this goes and go from there?
I had no idea. Let me tell you, I used to be such a private person. If my husband told like random people
Yeah.
anything other than the fact that we were married, I would feel he was sharing too much. I never had a conversation about sex with my mother until I'd already had two children. Like, no, I could not. And you ask a very important question because this is something common in the coaching world, the physician coaching world for sure, not only, but it's also very
Yeah.
strong here. The whole idea that we need to set goals and work towards them. We know
Yeah.
that from Dr. Una in the EntreMD Business School and
Yeah.
Elaine Staggerberg with Freedom. Like, just anywhere you turn, empowering women physicians with Sunny Smith, like
Yeah.
it's all about setting goals and then going for it.
Yeah.
And I really have great respect. If anything I'm about to say sounds like I'm knocking that, then I haven't done a good job articulating my position. I have so much respect for that. And the fact is that there's very little in my journey that started with a goal other than applying to medical school. That's not accidental. That takes real intentionality, as
Yeah.
does becoming a resident.
Yeah.
But everything in my journey since then, no, I mostly just looked at what was in front of me and
Yeah.
moved forward in the way that I was inspired. And
Yeah.
I've had times where I second guessed myself, but yes, like getting into coaching, I I wasn't looking. I really didn't know what a coach
Yeah.
was when I started coaching. And um if you when I started had said that I would be working with high achieving, educated, successful couples, I would have been very suspicious because most of the people in my coach training were working with individuals, and my marriage was not actually at the state that I would want it to be, to have integrity, to be helping other couples. And in fact, this is so interesting because I didn't tell that many people I was married. But while I was training, others in my program, when we would ask one another for coaching, they asked me to do couples coaching. Like I had a lot of different people ask me, would you coach me and my spouse?
Yeah.
And that's what opened it up. So I'm not someone who just like covers my eyes and walks into a door without knowing what's on the other side. Like that is not my personality.
Yeah.
I like being focused and following through, but I could not possibly have seen most of the twists and turns in my professional biography before they happened.
That is amazing. I mean, like I said, just it's amazing what happens when you allow yourself to develop your identity because like I said you started, I mean, the foundation of it, right? If you go back to your conversation, the work started from you. Like it wasn't your spouse, it wasn't the job, it was the internal work that you had to do. And once you did that, just the doors of opportunity that open for you have led you into this amazing journey where you were able to develop all parts of you and still feel whole outside of medicine, right? Because that's another thing you talked about. It's like that feeling of, oh, after sacrificing so much to say I'm not practicing, but you did the work and it's shown up in every aspect of your life. So kudos to you and just so excited to see how your journey keeps going. Now, before I let you go, for the just if we want to help a physician who's listening to you right now, and knows that their marriage is running on fumes, right? And they feel like they have no time or energy left to give it. What is the one thing you would tell them to do this week?
Okay, well, I definitely would say get my book. It's a very easy read, Uncompromising Intimacy. It will make you think, and it's not dogmatic. Like it's an easy read if you're looking for something. And my podcast, the Intimate Marriage Podcast, every week it's practical ideas to make your marriage better and replenish it. And um, if your marriage is running on fumes, what is one thing that you could do to just implement right now? Honestly, it is to take 2 minutes, maybe you work your way up to 10, to make a point of having pleasure in your day. So that means paying attention to the five senses, whether it's sitting on a bench and letting the sun caress your skin, but take the time to enjoy it, or smelling a flower, whether you enjoy coffee, you pick a mug that's the right weight, that feels enjoyable with the right lip, enjoy the aroma, and then really be intentional with any or more than one of your senses and experience some pleasure every day. And if you ask me why, which I don't think you were going to do, but anyway, because if your marriage is on fumes, the very first thing is for you to feel at least a little bit better.
Yeah,
And when
yeah,
you feel a little bit better, in the way that happens when we experience pleasure, then you'll have more patience, more creativity, more energy to figure out what the next step is.
yeah, yeah. That is awesome advice. And I'm definitely going to put all the links to your podcast, to your book. If someone wants to work with you, is that something that where can they find how can they get in touch with you?
alexandrastockwell.com. That's my
Okay.
website, and there's a form to fill out. And if you're a physician and you contact me, I will reply promptly and we can dialogue about it.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's such valuable insight, Dr. Alexandra, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. You've been an amazing physician's keeper. You've come in with your wealth of knowledge, your wealth of experience, and you've shown us what it is. I mean, just the possibility of just dreaming outside of your scope and doing the inner work and just being a vision board, as Dr. Uno would say, for for what it looks like for physicians on the other side of whatever it is that they're called to do outside of medicine and just making that impact. So it's been an absolute pleasure. If you are listening, if you have enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure that you definitely have, please like, share, and subscribe. Dr. Alexandra also has, I think you also have a YouTube channel
I
also.
do,
And
yes.
yes. So please, I'm going to put in the links. Make sure you subscribe to her channel and just hear more of this. I mean, there's so much. I mean, these are lifelong lessons, 30 years of marriage. There's so much we can condense in 1 hour. So if you want to hear more, she has all these amazing resources available, and all the links will be in the show note. And if you're a physician and you have a story to tell, you something that can help another physician feel seen, heard, supported. That's what we're here for. This is Physicians Keepers, and we are always ready to hear your stories. And you can send me an email, draremolo@gmail.com. We are on Instagram at Physicians Keepers, and we're just here to help the physician community, and we do that by our stories. And Dr. Alexandra's story has been such an inspiring and amazing one, so I'm really grateful for her presence here today.
Thank you so much. This is such an important offering for any physician in a time of questioning.
Well, thank you. And one more thing before we go, if you're listening, you're watching, my new book is out. It's called Captain Cardio and the Heart Wrench. It's a kid's book, ages 4 to 10. It's usually the age. But funny enough, a lot of adults have actually said they've learned a lot about their heart, but it just explains anatomy of the heart in a way that's fun and friendly for kids, and just piques their interest at this age. And we do have a villain, of course. Every hero needs to have a villain. Our villain is Placky, in this book, and this is the first in the Vaudeville League of Superheroes. We have Lieutenant Lung, who is scheduled to come out before the year runs out. So it's available on Amazon. Would appreciate it if you would buy a copy and also leave a review on Amazon, because reviews are how word gets around on Amazon. So thank you all for your support. But you all have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're listening. And thank you for tuning in today. And we look forward to our next episode.
Thank you for listening to Physicians Keepers. I hope today's conversation gave you something useful to carry into your life or practice. If it resonated, share it with another physician who might need it. And if you have a story that could help someone else, I'll love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media or send me an email. See you in the next episode.